Hello, I'm Howard Mann, creator of Conscious Shifting, and welcome to Conscious Shifting. Before we get started, a quick warning and disclaimer. Conscious shifting and all known side effects will improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while creating the ideal environment for spiritual awakening, helping you live the life of your dreams and influence the world in a positive way. So, if that's something that interests you, become part of our tribe by following this page or subscribing if you're watching on YouTube. And then join us here on Facebook or YouTube Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. California time for Conscious Shifting. Now, there's so many people in the tribe and following what we do here that it's not really possible to personally communicate with everyone. So, the way to communicate is through our daily thought provoking posts or during a live. If you have a question, simply put it in the comment box and we'll answer it from a spiritual perspective. This will benefit all. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Everybody take a deep breath way down to the lower energy center, just below the belly button, and relax. Another big deep breath. And relax. And one more time, big deep breath. And relax. All right. So, do you ever ponder higher realities, specifically higher spiritual realities? Have you ever wondered what they are and if it's possible for you to access them? What if I were to tell you that higher realities not only exist, but that you do have access to them right now, in fact? And there is a spiritual path that will lead you to spiritual awakening. Would that interest you? If so, then this live is for you. The spiritual path improves your physical, mental, and spiritual health while creating the ideal environment for spiritual awakening. But to wake up, you must first be open to the possibility that higher realities exist, and then simply walk the path, and spiritual awakening will occur. Spiritual path is not really a path leading to a destination, but rather a way of life. And the more you embrace the way, the happier and healthier you'll become. You'll also have less distractions to spiritual awakening. And so, last but not least, the sooner you will awaken. So, what we're going to briefly discuss tonight is 11 steps to help keep you on the spiritual path. I see Susan and Kim and Wanda. Welcome. So, number one is, and some of these you're probably well aware of, but being the new year and everybody kind of setting goals and maybe reaffirming that you want to walk the spiritual path, the spiritual way of life, and create the ideal environment for spiritual awakening, we'll run through these. So, some of them may just be reminders for you, but more than likely you'll get some insight in at least a few of them. So, number one is nutrition. The thing about nutrition is that the body knows what to do and it will naturally do it if it's provided all the necessary ingredients. So, you don't really have to. I mean, if that's your thing, that's fine. But you don't really have to be overly concerned and get into all the details and all the latest fabs and all the latest supplements and, or these strict diets. Um, if any of that stuff worked, you'd find that those people would all be enlightened, or everybody in that group would be enlightened. And that is not the case. So it will help. But the reason that nutrition helps is because nutrition gives the body what it needs to maintain and repair itself. So proper nutrition is the fuel of life. Limiting and avoiding things that is not nutritious, of course, is highly recommended. But just think of it as your body being your temple while you're, walking along the spiritual path. And so you'd be wise to treat it accordingly. if you're sick and you have health problems or you're starving or something like this, it makes spiritual awakening much more difficult. It also makes life less enjoyable. So some of these are just nothing more than that. They're not the key, the only answer. They're just like pieces of a puzzle. And when they all fit together, the lock opens and spiritual awakening occurs. So, hi, Richard. Hi, RA. So, the second one is hydration. A lot of people don't really think too much about this, but you realize that your body is over half water. Some experts say 75% water. So, water is involved in every function that your body performs. The minimum requirement for water is 1/2 ounce of water per day per pound of body weight. And if you consume caffeine or alcohol, know that they're both dehydrators. And so you need to increase your water level above the minimum. Also, increase your water intake if you're a really active person or pregnant, something along these lines. Another thing to understand is that water is vital for flushing out toxins. And without hydration, energy can't properly flow through the body. All good reasons to stay hydrated. Number 3 is exercise. And, our bodies are designed to move around. And without proper exercise, your health is going to deteriorate. To illustrate that, I'll tell you a story. Some of you may have heard this before. It's not the first time I've told this story, but it illustrates the point very well. And that is that the Shaolin fighting monks are known for their amazing skills. You probably know who the Shaolin monks are. Maybe you watched Black Belt or Kung Fu Theater as a kid, something like this. Maybe you were even involved in martial arts at some point in your life. But most people know who the Shaolin monks are. And the thing is that most people don't really know how it all got started. Originally, the monks of Shaolin were strictly Buddhist monks. They were so dedicated to spiritual practice that they got lost on the spiritual path. What happened was they were spending all of their time pursuing spiritual matters, meditating, this kind of stuff, and they neglected their health, and this created an imbalance. And then their health deteriorated to the point that they couldn't maintain, much less defend the temple. Now they found it. This is how weak they got. They found it so. They were in such distress that they found it difficult to remain alert or even awake during meditation. So, in an effort to bring about spiritual consciousness, they ended up creating spiritual blocks. Now, there was a monk who was traveling named Buddharama and Daomo in Chinese, and he, along his travels, stopped at Shaolin, visited the temple for a while. He saw what was going on, so to help the monks, he taught them some health promoting exercises and some basic self-defense moves. Now, these eventually blossomed into Shaolin Kung Fu. So, Kung Fu provided a way to master both their physical and spiritual health. And through balance, the fighting Shaolin monks were born. It just illustrates beautifully how important balance, nutrition, hydration, exercise, everything is. Sleep. A lot of people overlook sleep. Experts, this is number 4. Experts recommend adults get between 6 and 9 hours of sleep per night. And this is, among other things, to allow for proper recovery. Lack of sleep makes you more accident prone, partially because of inadequate physical body function due to fatigue, but also due to mental fog, another sign of sleep deprivation. So, with adequate sleep, you can reduce stumbling along the spiritual path. And, it's much easier for people to be around you or you to even be around yourself. The spiritual path is not one for sleep deprivation and grumpiness. Enlightenment unfolds for those who prepare. So no matter how well, I know some people, they get by on not a lot of sleep and they seem to do okay, but they would be twice the person if they got the right amount of sleep, and they'd have probably a quarter of the health problems, especially as they age. These things tend to snowball on you. So when you neglect these things when you're young, you'll get away with it. But as you start to age, it really starts catching up with you and you start paying for all your sins, so to speak. Now, number 5 is stress management. In addition to the first 4 that we discussed, a stress, because those are all stressors. All disease is the result of stress. So anything, it can be physical stress, mental stress, stress from malnutrition, dehydration, that kind of, all of these things are all stressors. But in addition to taking care of your basic health requirements, you also need some kind of a stress management system. So that's number 5. Something like meditation. Um, because if stress is allowed to build up, it's eventually going to manifest as disease. That's what it does. So any activity with a calming effect on the mind will help. A break in mental activity does wonders. Physical movement can help too, believe it or not, because exercise will break up and release stress as well as release hormones that make you feel better. There are also calming exercises like Tai Chi and yoga. And Tai Chi, for example, is often referred to as a moving meditation. It's not quite the same as formal meditation, but it's very peaceful and calming. So you can kind of combine some exercise and some balancing techniques, both physically and mentally, along with stress management, all in something like Tai Chi. Number 6 is forgiveness. And this is huge. This is huge. And the first ones are, okay, pretty straightforward. And forgiveness sounds like it's straightforward, but a lot of people don't really get it. Oh yeah, I forgive you. But that's not really getting the job done. It's much deeper than just saying or even feeling like you forgive somebody. And this includes yourself. If you refuse to let go of negative energy, which is what you're doing when you refuse to forgive, you're holding on to the toxic energy. You're absorbing the toxic energy that resides in negative emotions. The longer you hold on to them, the more of that toxic energy you absorb and the more damage it reaps on your entire mental and physical energy systems. It will eat you up like cancer and literally can cause cancer. So forgiveness doesn't mean that you're okay with what's happened. That's not what forgiveness is. It means that you understand human imperfection in yourself and in others. That's all. You simply accept reality. Because when you resist reality, you can't let go, because resistance is not just holding on, but it's holding on with a death grip. Putting more and more and more energy into something only creates more of it. Now, what has happened can't be changed, but you can move on once you let go. So you can think of negative energy as a hot coal. That visual is pretty easy to understand, right? I mean, if you had a hot coal in your hand, you'd immediately let go of it. You'd drop it. And that's what you do with negative energy. You let go or you continue to get burned. It's that simple. So forgiveness is huge. We'll do some further lives on a lot of these, really break them down and get into techniques. Tonight, I just wanted to go over 11 things that you may not be thinking about as you make your New Year's resolution list. And these are things that are critical for your physical, mental, and spiritual health, and anything else that you're trying to pursue. Without these things, It's just gonna it's gonna be a well, it may not be a disaster, but it may be as a disaster, but it's certainly not going to be what it could be. And literally going to block yourself from growth. So these things are really important. The seventh one is attitude. Your attitude makes or breaks you. If you have a shitty attitude, that's going to manifest a negative life experience. You're going to see the world as a horrible place. You're going to see other people as horrible people. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be waiting for one disaster after another to strike and expecting it because you look at everything from a negative perspective. It's not that the world's a horrible place. It's not that people are all horrible, or even the horrible ones are horrible all the time. That's not the case. But you can see through those eyes, and then that's the way you'll experience it. So your attitude is really, really, really important. Your thoughts expand into reality. This reality is nothing more than a projection of our collective consciousness. Now, think about how people, sometimes jokingly, sometimes just in a partial truth, sometimes really seriously, but they'll say things like, this sucks, Well, if that's what you're projecting onto the world, imagine what that's going to manifest. If you're thinking life sucks or something, I mean, that's what you're going to create. That's not good. That's not what you want. I'm sure it's not. So conversely, thoughts such as life is a great adventure, that will create a completely different experience. So marvel at the universe that we live in. Life is wonderful as seen through the eyes of a child because they have not yet been conditioned into seeing life any other way. And another thing is that life only happens in this moment. Trying to live in the past is going to, more often than not, you're dwelling on something unpleasant in the past. It's going to cause depression. And trying to live in the future, worrying about what's going to happen, that's going to cause anxiety. And those are going to manifest as more and more and more serious mental and then physical health issues. So in this moment is where you'll find peace. And in this moment is the only place that life can happen. So if you really want to live, you have to be present. You got to participate. You got to be in the game, good and bad, however you want to judge it. We won't talk about judgment right now, but you know what I mean. So number 8 is growth. All living things are either in a state of growth or decay. Growth is evidence of life. Learning new things keeps life fun and interesting. Find something of interest and explore. Take up new hobbies, join sports, try various art forms. Once you start looking or asking around, you'll be amazed. There's a lifetime's worth of activities to choose from. So just start with whatever sounds good and then see where that takes you. If need be, choose something else, but continue trying new things. Number 9, Kim's asking a question. Isn't there only pre-force good or bad? It's all judgment. It's all opinion. It's all basically a prejudice based on past experience. So in a sense, anytime that you judge anything as good or bad, you're actually taking yourself out of the present moment because you're mentally at least drifting back and supporting, rather than experiencing the moment as it is, you're experiencing it through a past memory, and because that's what the judgment's based upon. And all of the times that you went to Disneyland, if you're planning a trip to Disneyland, all of a sudden all these past memories start coming up, and so there's this preconceived or prejudice about what it's going to be like, rather than going there with a fresh set of eyes and ears and tastes and smell and touch, and experiencing it as if it was the first time you'd ever experienced it, without any preconceived notions, and just letting the senses kind of perceive what they can perceive, and just experience it as it is, fresh and new. Makes it exciting. That's being present. That's being present. So, good or bad, really is not being present. You're not really living life. You're playing around with memories and past experiences. Good question. So that brings me to number 9. Regularly work on connection to spiritual source. Meditation, for example, is considered by most in the know not only to be the best stress reducer, but also the foundation of spiritual practice, and developing the ability to be connected spiritually. So again, here's one of those things that you don't have to do it 20 hours a day. You do it 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day. I mean, if you want to do an hour, that's fine, but you don't have to. The point is, every day do it. Even if you only start with 5 minutes, and if you can build up to 15 or 30, that's great. But the point is, it's better to do it every day with what time you can actually do, and you will do, than it is the once in a blue moon meditate for a day. It's just because every time you do that, you're placing yourself back in a state that's ideal for healing, and a state that's most likely to result in your connecting spiritually. That's why you want to do it every day. Eventually, you can learn to be that way all the time, not just when you're meditating. But that's again a topic for another night. But that's meditation is not only the stress reducer, but also the spiritual connection. So there is something, if you're pushed for time, if you can pick a couple of these things that do more than one thing, you kind of the old kill two birds with one stone philosophy. It takes less time to get things done, important things, if you're really serious about this. And it's why you're here, whether you own it or not. It's why we're all here. We come here to awaken. So it's pretty important. We can take thousands of lifetimes if that's what we want to do, but why suffer for all those lifetimes unnecessarily? Why not just move into a higher state of consciousness where life is much more enjoyable? Miracles seem to be happening around you all the time, and you spiritually awaken that much sooner. That's what I recommend anyway. But there's other things that will help you connect. You can get out into nature. That's a good way to connect to spirit. Take a walk through a forest, or along a stream, or by the ocean. Lay out at night under the stars. Meditate in the moonlight. Because the thing is that you're one with nature. All of this, everything here, this universe and everything in it is a manifestation of spirit. You're part of that. So when you get out into it and you experience it, you'll find that it helps you connect. It'll remind you of who you are, and how you're connected to everything. Perceived, yes. It's I see what you're saying. Yes, it's all a matter of perception. Um, If you want to look at it, they call it stinking thinking. If you want to look at it negatively, everything will seem to be negative. The real difference between a happy person and a sad person is how they perceive the world. The difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they perceive money. All these things are matters of consciousness. They're not really good or bad. It's just your level of consciousness manifests your life experience. It's that simple. So we'll talk about all of that and ways to improve it. But it's important to keep that in mind so that when you find yourself going negative, you put yourself in check. Say, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what I want to manifest into reality. Let's choose a different thought. You do that enough, it'll just become habit. You won't even have to think about it anymore. And what you'll find is that you'll start reprogramming the subconscious. So all of those negative thoughts and emotions will come up fewer and fewer or less and less. I don't know what proper English is, but less and less of the time. You'll have fewer and fewer of them. And then eventually almost none. You'll still experience life the way everybody else does, but you won't. You'll handle it completely differently. It's not that life doesn't happen, but the way you go through it will be completely different. From a spiritual perspective. Yes, everything is energy. We live in an energy universe. And so if you understand how you've ever taken any science classes at all, biology, chemistry, physics, you'll find that this whole place is nothing more than the way energy interacts with energy. And what I'm saying is that your consciousness interacts with all of the energy in the universe, actually creates this reality and how you experience it. You have far more control over it than you realize. It's more like influence, but there's a lot. You get enough people doing this, and the entire reality of the planet's going to shift. That's what's coming. Probably not tonight, but that's what's coming. So number 10 on the list is spiritual education. Right? You don't know what you don't know until you do. And then what you'll find is you'll never be the same again. But some of this, and the more of this you get in, the more you get into this, the more of this is just going to start downloading. It seems like downloading, but it's not really coming from outside of you. All of this stuff is already within. But there's ways to trigger it. There's ways to bring it forth. And eventually it'll just start happening on its own. But to help you get started, you can seek it out. So seek to know the truth. Curiosity is healthy. The truth is never afraid. The truth seeker's never afraid. The only people that are afraid, the only people that really want to stifle things and control things, are the people that don't want to step up to reality as it exists. They want to continue to live the lie. That's not going to get the job done. So curiosity, seeking to know the truth, is actually a very good thing. It also helps keep you on the spiritual path, because if spirit is nothing else, it's truth. So, if you're, these people that want to control everything, and even thought and speech and all this kind of stuff, they're trying to stifle spirit because they're not spiritual. Spirit is expansive and inclusive. Exactly. Hi, Sonia. How you doing? Richard. One with nature. The trees teach me or emanate stillness. Exactly. Sonia, my cat George is at the vet and is going to be put down. I don't know if I can go and say goodbye. My daughter took him to the vet this morning, and I was not expecting this outcome. I'm devastated. That's really tough. Your pets, for most people, or just like any other member of the family. So it's a very difficult time. But there's different ways to look at that. One is to look at it as a sense of loss and goodbye, um, the end of something. But those are negative perceptions of what's really going on. There, this is all temporary. That's one thing about the physical realm. It's all temporary. Consciousness, on the other hand, and we'll get to that in the healing circle if you want to stick around. We'll play around with that a little bit. But consciousness, on the other hand, is eternal. Always has been, is, and always will be. And we have that. The fact that we can sit here and even question it is proof that we, in fact, have consciousness. When we meditate and we can observe all of the body functions and the emotions and the thoughts, that means that we're not them, because you can't observe something and be what you're observing at the same time. So you must be something else. Well, there's something else if it's not dependent upon and supported by the mind body, and all the functions of the mind body must be non-physical, meaning spirit or consciousness or conscious energy, however you choose to see it. And so there really is no permanency in the physical world. And that's part of the reason why we have problems, because we live a reality where we assume that there's a permanence, that these things aren't going to change, that or in fact everything is always in a constant state of change. That's why it's not the truth, because the truth never changes. It always is what it is. Now, with regards to letting go of a loved one, it's just you got together temporarily in this incarnation, but they're not going anywhere. The body expires, but the consciousness that was animating the body continues on. So there's that. And then for most of us, we'll be coming back anyway, to do some more work here. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I know it's tough times. I've been there. I've had to put an animal down, and you don't want to see them suffer, and you don't want to torture them, trying to keep them alive for another month when they're just going to be in pain the whole time. It's better really to let them go. That's tough, and it hurts, and that's okay. It's just, but just understand that the emotions are nothing more than that. They're just a sensation of the body, just like you smell dinner cooking. It's just a sensation of the body. So you can kind of look at it that way. The pain that you feel is just a sensation of the body. It's not who you are. It's not reality. It's just how you're interpreting the energetic interaction at the moment. But there really is no goodbye to anything that's real, because there's only one spirit. There's only one consciousness. We're all part of it, and nothing in this world changes that. Nothing. We incarnate and we pass on. We incarnate again. We pass on. We're all doing this game of life, but it's just temporary. We come here to do some things, and each life there's a journey, and when it's over, it's over, and then it's time for the next one. So my heart goes out to you. I hope that helps. Hi, Anna. How you doing? Susan, I had to do that 3 years ago. It would have been her 16th birthday today. Yeah. Hey, Chris. All right. So we were talking about spiritual education, number 10 on the list. There's books. You can read books. There's study groups. There's classes. Some people attending church appeals to them. The internet, you can access blogs and videos and things like Facebook Live, or we're doing one right now. The thing is, you want to find reputable teachers. So My best advice with that is if you resonate with what they're saying, then chances are there's at least some truth to what they're saying, and you're recognizing that. That's what that when I say resonate, that's what I mean. It's like when you're drawn to it. So then you may want to pay attention, but I always suggest put their information to the test. You know, you don't want to waste time following somebody for years and years and years to find out that they're just, woo woo, mistaken, whatever. So put the information to the test, and if it holds true, then carry on. But if not, then move on to somebody else that you resonate with, and in this way, you'll find your way, and then eventually, um, this stuff will just start coming to you because it's already within you. So you won't really, it'll things will change. You'll start to see more deeply into everything. You'll look at a mountain and unlock the mysteries of God. If you do happen to read something, you'll see it in a multi-dimensional way. That the depth just keeps increasing, um, and you'll just know things. You won't necessarily know how. You'll just know them because you'll start to recognize that it's not the same thing as something you've learned or something that you think. It's just something you know, but you also know that it's the truth. Sometimes you can be mistaken, but you'll start to differentiate, and eventually you'll know uh, higher and higher truths, and those will always hold true. The truth, the ultimate truth, will always be what it is. It'll never change, never be proven wrong. It'll always be what it is. If not, then that's an indication that it's not really the ultimate truth. That's maybe a misperception or a partial truth at best. Chris says, I recently discovered Danica Patrick's podcast on YouTube. She has amazing guests and she's extremely spiritual, as in tuned. Oh, there you go. There's someone to check out. And number 11 on the list is spiritual practice. Now, you can go to church, you can meditate, but spiritual practice also consists of demonstrating your spirituality. These are the signs of somebody that's beginning to awaken. They actually demonstrate a spiritual perspective. The journey or the spiritual path leads to shifts in consciousness. The higher the level of consciousness, the greater the signs. So some indications of spiritual consciousness include a calm state of being at peace with things. That's a high spiritual perspective. It's one of the benefits. That a lot of the suffering is nothing more than lower level consciousness, and because it's not the truth or only a partial truth, if you live your life according to that, then when you bump up against things contrary to that creates conflict, or maybe deep inside that what you're doing isn't your highest self, and that creates conflict. So this conflict we experience is pain, or as Buddha put it, suffering. So one of the signs of spiritual awakening is the state of peace. Being, there's this calmness about it. Objective observation of thoughts and emotions. They're not something that just because something pops in your head, you don't have to act on it. You don't have to blurt it out. You can look at it and take a pause and say, is this something that I want to manifest into reality? If the answer is yes, then pursue it. Say it, do it. If the answer is no, or you think it's not for the greater good, it's going to cause more harm than good, then it's best to move on to a different choice. That observation is key. So the higher the level of spiritual consciousness, the better the observation is. Even when somebody gets confrontational with you or is really out of line, if you can hold spiritual center, that's demonstrating a high level of spirituality. To treat somebody with love when they're coming at you with hate is a miraculous thing to be able to do. And you'll be surprised how often it'll turn the whole situation around. It really lifts souls out of the darkness. That's what spirit does. And if you allow it to flow through you, that's what you're going to start witnessing. Um, Another thing is that understanding life. All of a sudden, life will start to not just make sense, but you have purpose, deep, deep, deep purpose. Everything going on, you'll see is kind of like I don't know if divine plan is the right word for it, because that kind of means that there's this, it's all mapped out, it's all predetermined. But it's kind of like that. You'll see you'll understand it. You'll understand everything is exactly the way it needs to be. It's happening exactly the way it needs to happen. Briefly, it's because our level of consciousness is creating this reality. And so the reality is created, and therein lies the opportunity to rise above it, to rise into a higher state of consciousness, which then would create a higher reality. So there's no way to get to a higher reality other than to understand in entirety the level that you're at. And so that's kind of how it works. Um, Also, understanding spiritual matters is kind of along the same lines. You'll just know that this is all happening exactly the way it needs to happen for the opportunity to be there to rise above it. Everything spirit does is geared around that. It's the opportunity for you to rise above it, to become more connected to spirit, to become more in whole your essence, your true being, to drop the falsehoods, rising into a higher state of consciousness, spiritual awakening. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Helping others is another one. You'll notice that people that are spiritually conscious tend to always help others. Sometimes it's little things. I mean, you don't have to write books and do Facebook lives or become a minister at a church. You don't have to do that at all. It's right in front of you. The life that you live, if you just do things from a spiritual perspective, you'll not only help yourself, but you'll be helping everybody that you come in contact with, regardless of how it may appear. But eventually you'll get to where you'll just, if you don't know, you'll ask for divine guidance, and then you'll say and do that, and you'll see the miracles just unfold on a regular basis. I can't say that, every time you say something or lend out a hand to somebody or open a door for them or something like that, they're just going to spiritually awaken. I'm not saying that, but they'll move a little closer to it. So the collective will get just a little bit brighter every time somebody does that. And over time, then we will create an entirely different reality. Ram Dass, be here now. Yes. And he also, another one I like of him, he said that we're all just walking each other home. I thought that was a really deep quote. When you get right down to it, I think I've said before, you may even see it post sometimes, that when you get right down to it, that's what we're doing. We're walking each other home. It's just like soulmates that meet up and help each other with this journey. A very deep statement. That's true, Anna. We should not be attached to any outcome. It's just not easy sometimes. That's when our ego gets in the way. There's reality, and there's the way we want to make reality conform to our will. And that's resisting. And that causes a lot of problems. It's okay to experience life, but it doesn't have to define you. That's the difference. Chris says, Howard, do you feel like we're able to manifest things more quickly now? Yeah. 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 In a lot of ways. I mean, I find myself sometimes I'll start to say something or start to think, like I know isn't really cool. And I just almost instantly can put myself back in check. So I don't go on these very seldom do I more than a second or two usually do I kind of start to lose it, even when I'm really being tested. So yeah, there's that. The whole environment has completely switched up. As you rise in consciousness, I find that your environment and everybody around you is affected that way. Much more loving, much calmer environment, and that's being manifested, no doubt about it. But also physical things. I mean, not that I'm over focused on it, but it's one of the reasons I don't. Nothing I do, my books, the lives, the posts, nothing, any of the advice, don't charge for any of it. I mean, Amazon. If you buy a book off Amazon, there's a small charge, but I'm losing money on all of it. It's not like so. I keep the money out of it because I don't want it to influence anything I do. I don't let social media gurus tell me what I'm going to talk about and not talk about. I don't let the news media, the government, or anyone else. I speak the truth, to the best of my ability. I get out of the way and let spirit flow through me. So there's that. I'm manifesting on that level, which is huge. I'm not even really involved as much as possible. It's just spirit flowing through me. But then even the physical stuff is different. I have a very successful business. I do during the day, and if something were to happen, I'd create something else. Because the consciousness is there. So it's not even, it just stuff just kind of shows up and happens on its own. It's like that for each level of consciousness, there's this energetic field that's associated with it. And the field actually does the work. That's the energy that's interacting with other energy. Now there's a little bit of this involved. I mean, the opportunities will present themselves. You need to recognize them and, pursue them if you want. But stuff just kind of happens. It's not, I don't sit around going, oh, I want a new Cadillac or something like that. It's not like that at all. But I find that whatever I need, and for the most part, whatever I want just kind of happens. It doesn't, I don't, and it's the difference between just always being in alignment with the greater good versus worshiping the dollar. If you ask for divine guidance, if you ask spirit to direct you in all that you do, everything just kind of happens. You don't have to worry about it. I don't sweat nothing, nothing. And if I was taken out of this world right now, okay, you know, um, and everything just sort of happens. I don't have any issues that way. At least not yet. I mean, there's going to come a day where I'm not going to be able to dodge. I've survived cancer, I've all this stuff, self-healed, all kinds of nerve damage and paralysis, and there's going to come a day where something's going to take me out. That's just, we come here to do that, but the journey's not over yet. And until it is, it's like, it's all great. So yeah, it's huge and much faster. At first, some of this stuff takes years and years and years, but then it gets to where it's just warp speed in comparison. Yes, manifestations manifest themselves. No worries, Susan. Chris says people can feel love when you give it and become it. Exactly. That's what you project. And that changes everything. Hi, Nikki. Yes, we are. Thank you. And I hope you are as well. And Kim is such a good tester. Hi, Marlena. Yeah, money kind of changes stuff. I mean, everybody has a career, a job, you do it for money, but when it comes to the spiritual stuff, I don't want money involved in it. And that's why I just never ask for any. I won't take any. Even if people contact me and say, "Hey, I want to donate," I say, "You know what? Give it to St. Jude's. That's what I want you to do. Whatever you want to give to Conscious Shifting, give to St. Jude's. That's a wonderful organization. That's who I donate most of my when I donate hard money. You know, actually, I do every month, but it's most of it goes to St. Jude. Exactly, Nikki. It's all about alignment and your purpose and living that. So helping others, and then of course projecting love and compassion in all matters. That's something else that spiritually awakened or people that are spiritually awakening. That's a sign of that they project love and compassion in everything they do. Because if they're not projecting that, then they're not projecting spirit. It's not that spirit's weak, quite the opposite. But it's all done with love and compassion. You know, even when it needs to be something we'd rather not deal with, it's still done in love and with compassion. So spiritual awakening happens when you're ready. For most people, that's going to be a process. But each shift in consciousness prepares you for the next. And dedication to the way will allow it to happen sooner. So these 11 things will assist you in that. And the rest of it we'll dive into in other lives. The spiritual path is going to differ for everybody. It's not identical. There's no cookie cutter. This is exactly how it works. Each person's journey is a little bit different. Um, However, spiritual awakening is our common destiny, and we will all awaken. No one will suffer from spiritual amnesia forever. But it is possible to awaken during this lifetime. You don't have to do it 1,000 lifetimes or 5,000 lifetimes. You can do it in this lifetime. It's possible. Um, you just need to allow your true essence to emerge. The truth is, you're already a spiritual being. You just don't believe that you are. You've adopted a lot of falsehoods, and that's what the spiritual blocks are. Nothing more. So if you drop them, boom, you're spiritually awakened. There's nothing greater that you can do for yourself or others. It's a selfless act because collectively we all benefit from each and every awakening. The purpose of human life is to spiritually awaken. That's why we're here, to live a spirit while in human form. And believe it or not, you're having a spiritual experience, whether you realize it or not. You're not capable of anything else. It would be impossible for you to have anything but a spiritual experience, no matter how you see it, no matter what it feels like. You're having a spiritual experience because you are a spiritual being. So, how could you be having anything other than a spiritual experience? You can't. But you can prolong your awakening by denying your spiritual essence. And that's what we do. Anytime you deny spirit, you create a spiritual block, prolonging your awakening and increasing your suffering. You always have a choice, spirit or something else. And you can bring spirit to all levels of consciousness. You can bring spirit to everything. If you're picking out bell peppers in the produce section at the grocery store, it may sound strange, but you can do it from a spiritual mindset. So the result when you live your life that way is going to be spiritual awakening. And spiritual awakening will then lead to spiritual mastery. Spiritual mastery is living as spirit while in human form. And spiritual mastery is our common destiny. That's where mankind is headed. So that's 11 things to help keep you on the spiritual path. Yes. Yeah, that what you're passionate about, it'll be like it's not work and you'll just love doing it. It's great if you can do that for a living, but yeah, I don't want money involved in this. Because then if I didn't run my other business and I had to support myself and my family with this, then I would have to do things from based on what money. Whereas now I just do what spirit guides me to do, and I don't worry about it. Um, and that other business is manifested the same way, to be honest, which allows me to do this without asking for money. That's a blessing right there. My comments are jumping, I'm trying to read them, but they keep popping around. It's always hard when you lose somebody, especially when it's unexpected. Um, but I find that acceptance of the way things are, gratitude for the time that you had together, and when you think of them, focus on that, and then just know that it's not the end. They're still here, and you're going to pass on too. And you'll probably mingle in the afterlife, and possibly you'll reincarnate and find each other in another lifetime. There's a lot of things we could talk about with all that. Yes. Okay, that'll have to look up. I That'll have to look up. Um, yeah, I'll check into that. I know that when they started, there was an 80% fatality rate, and now there's a 80% survival rate overall. But I don't know specifically about that. I'll have to that Berninsky cure. I'll have to look that up. So if you guys want to do a healing circle, um, let's do that, and then we'll close out. Let me get this started. There we go. All right, so everybody gather around, join hands, forming a circle, comfortable upright position, eyes and mouths gently closed, breathing through the nose down to the lower energy center just below the belly button, and then exhaling back out through the nose. And a nice deep breath, and then exhale. Another deep breath, breathe in the peace, and exhale all tension. And settle into the relaxation. Continue the breathing on your own. Let the physical world go for a while. Let the healing energy build and flow. Follow the breath deep into your body, beyond the roles that you play for family, friends, and the world. Follow the breath deep into your body, moving inward from your body behind your senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. You can notice any sensations, allow them to be, but just observe them without any judgment. They're merely sensations of the body. And then moving deeper inward, what are you feeling? Underneath your emotions, such as shame, guilt, grief, fear, anger, desire, and pride. Again, notice the emotions, but just allow them to be. Observe them without any judgment. Not good, bad. They're just merely emotions of the body. That's all. Moving deeper inward behind your thoughts of past and future. Notice any thoughts, but again, just allow them to be. Observe without judgment. They are merely thoughts of the mind. And moving deeper still, deep, deep, deep inward, underneath your judgment, such as good and bad. Notice any judgments, but allow them to be. Observe without judging. They're merely judgments of the mind, the ego. So the point is, when you get behind all this, when you get underneath all this, who is sensing? Who is feeling? Who is thinking? And who is judging? Who is sitting in the stillness? Let's contemplate this for about a minute and then we'll continue. Okay, so sitting there in the stillness, observing, observing all. That entity is your true essence, your spirit, your spiritual being, a soul temporarily in a physical body with senses, a physical organism, a mind body playing the game of life, playing roles for others, sensing, feeling, thinking, judging. But behind it all, underneath it all, is your true essence, spirit, an all knowing consciousness is it existing without the support of any of these things. You exist, but you are not these things because you can observe these things. And so in the stillness, you experience your true essence. You experience self. You experience pure consciousness, pure being. And this is who you are. This is who you've always been, and this is who you'll always be. Beyond all, you are, we are, projecting peace and love onto the world. And so it is. All right, slowly open your eyes. And let me close this out. There we go. I will look that up. All right, I don't see any other questions. So with that, I honor the God within you. And remember, until the next time, the only way to bring about the greater good is to be the greater good. Good night.